你好, welcome back to Ask Andy to learn Mandarin Chinese. In this video, our topic is 6 basic tenses in Chinese language. I'm going to answer 2 questions. Question number 1, how to express present, future, and past tenses in Chinese. We are going to talk about do, does, doing, done, will do, and did in Chinese language. Question number 2, how to ask and answer questions in present, future, and past tenses in Mandarin Chinese. I'm going to focus on yes or no questions. It's a big topic. Better get ready to take notes. Let's get into it. Question number 1, how to express present, future, and past tenses in Chinese. In English, we're going to conjugate verbs. We're going to have does, doing, done, and did, right? But in Chinese, we don't conjugate the verbs. We have our own ways to express present, future, and past tenses. You may ask, why did I put did in the end? Because the past tense in Chinese is the most complicated one. Let's do it one by one. Let's start with present tenses. Number 1, simple present tense, do or does. The first example, I take Chinese lessons. In Chinese, it is 我上中文课. 我上中文课. It's easy, right? What about this one? He takes Chinese lessons. In English, we have s. We conjugate the take into takes. What about Chinese? The same. We don't have conjugations for verbs. It is 他上中文课. 他上中文课. Nothing difficult, right? How do we negate the verbs? Do not or does not. We negate with a 不 in Chinese. So, I do not take Chinese lessons. It is 我不上中文课. 我不上中文课. You may notice that this 不 is the 4th tone. But when I was reading it, it was the 2nd tone. I made a video before talking about those tone change rules in Chinese. When and why do Chinese change tones? I put the link in the description below. You can check it out there. What about this one? He does not take Chinese lessons. The same. 他不上中文课. 他不上中文课. Nothing difficult, right? Number 2, present continuous tense. That will be am is are doing. So we have doing in English. The example is he is taking Chinese lessons. How do you say that in Chinese? It is 他在上中文课. 他在上中文课. How do you understand this 在? I recommend you to remember it with my translation. 在 means in the process of. Now let's do it with my translation. 他在上中文课. That is, he in the process of taking Chinese lessons. It's easy to understand, right? Much easier. This is only one of the ways how we express doing in Chinese. Another one is 他正在上中文课. 他正在上中文课. How do we understand this 正? Actually, it is just the emphasis there. It is just in the process of. Now you do it with my translation. He just in the process of taking Chinese lessons. It's also easy to understand, right? How do we negate verbs in present continuous tense? So, he is not taking Chinese lessons. We also negate it with a 不. It is 他不在上中文课. 他不在上中文课. It's also easy to understand with my translation. It would be not in the process of. He not in the process of taking Chinese lessons. But here, I need to remind you, we won't say 他不正在上中文课. Why? Because I let you know before, this 正 is just. When we negate, it's not necessary for us to say not just in the process of. It's okay for us to say not in the process of. It's not necessary for us to say not just in the process of. It's also easy to understand in English. Let's move on. Number 3, present perfect tense. how do you say have has done in Chinese? The example is, he has taken Chinese lessons before. It is, 他以前上过中文课。他以前上过中文课。How do you understand that 过? My translation is, has the experience of. Let's try it with my translation. He before has the experience of taking Chinese lessons. Easy to understand, right? You may notice the different word order for time words in English, before, and Chinese, 以前, in a sentence. I made a video before talking about the different word order in English and Chinese. I put the link in the description below. You can check it out there. Then, let's move on with the negation of verbs in present perfect tense. Have has not done. That will be haven't done or hasn't done. The example is, he has not taken Chinese lessons before. It is, 他以前没有上过中文课。他以前没有上过中文课。And I made 有 in brackets. You can go without this 有, also this 以前 in brackets. You can just say 他没上过中文课。他没上过中文课。And actually, it's a coincidence here. You can see, in English, we have has not. In Chinese, what we do is 没有, has not, sort of, don't have. 没有 means don't have in Chinese, right? Now you can see the connection between English and Chinese clearly. So has not is 没有. In English, what we say is have or has not done. And in Chinese, we have this 过. You can take this 过 as the NE there. It's so similar in these two languages. So for this point, it should be easy for you to understand and remember. Let's move on with number 4, simple future tense, will do. This is easy. The example is, he will take Chinese lessons tomorrow. In Chinese, it is, 他明天会上中文课。他明天会上中文课。Nothing difficult. Let's move on with another one. M is are going to do. He is going to take Chinese lessons tomorrow. How do you say that in Chinese? It is, 他明天要上中文课。他明天要上中文课。For this 要, you may say it means to want in Chinese. How come it means is going to here? Actually, 要 has multiple meanings in Chinese. I'm going to make another video to talk about that later. How do we negate the verb in simple future tense? Will not do. That is the same, 不. So, he will not take Chinese lessons tomorrow is 他明天不会上中文课。他明天不会上中文课 in Chinese. And for another one, he's not going to take Chinese lessons tomorrow. That is, 他明天不要上中文课。他明天不要上中文课。Easy, right? Number 5, simple past tense, did. I told you before, this is the most complicated tense in Chinese. So the example is, he took Chinese lessons yesterday. How do you say that in Chinese? It is, 他昨天上了中文课。他昨天上了中文课。So we have a l right after the verb. But this is the number 1. This is only one of the ways how we say that in Chinese. What about the second way? It is, 他昨天上中文课了。他昨天上中文课了。The difference lies in the position of the l in the sentence. Number 1, we had the l right after the verb. But for number 2, we made the l in the end of the sentence. What's the difference between these two l? L is one of the most complicated character or word in Chinese. I'm going to make another video to talk about that later. How do we negate in Chinese for simple past tense? In English, we say did not, right? Let's see the example. He did not take Chinese lessons yesterday. In Chinese, it is, 他昨天没有上中文课。他昨天没有上 中文课. You may notice that we negate verbs in the same way in simple past tense and present perfect tense. And for this did not, I need to mention a common mistake. 他昨天没有上了中文课. Lots of my students would have another了 there. It is wrong. Actually, it's easy to understand. You see, in English, did not take, we have the original form of the verb. In Chinese, we have 没有 as did not. We need to have the original form of the verb 上. But if you have another 了, that's too much. Is it easy for you to understand? I hope you get it. Okay, number 6. This is the last one, last tense we are going to talk about. Past continuous tense. Was or were doing. The example is, he was taking Chinese lessons at 10 a.m. yesterday. How do you say that in Chinese? It is, 他昨天上午10点在上中文课. 他昨天上午10点在上中文课. And you can see nothing in this sentence shows was. Actually, you may notice that it's the same like that we had in present perfect tense. How do you understand this point? Do you remember my translation for 在? Now try it. He, yesterday morning at 10 a.m., in the process of taking Chinese lessons. It makes sense now, right? How do we negate? He was not taking Chinese lessons at 10 a.m. yesterday. The same. 他昨天上午10点不在上中文课. 他昨天上午10点不在上中文课. Let's try it with my translation. He, yesterday morning at 10 o'clock, not in the process of taking Chinese lessons. It's easy to understand in this way, right? Too much information. How do you remember so much? Let me summarize it for you. So we have tenses in Chinese, that is present, future, and past. Let's do it one by one. So for present tense, we have simple present, present continuous, and present perfect tense. So in English, that is do, does, am, is, are, doing, and have, has, done. So for simple present tense, that's the easiest one. So the verb we just have as what it is. And then am, is, are, doing, we just need a 在, goes before the verb. And for have, has, done, we need the particle 过 after the verb. And for future tense, we only have simple future tense here. Will do in Chinese, it is 会 plus verb. Am, is, are, going to do in Chinese, it is 要 plus verb. And for past tense, we have simple past tense and past continuous tense. For simple past tense, did, what we do is, we have a verb plus le. Remember, there are two ways. One le would go after the verb. The other one is in the end of the sentence. What's the difference between them? I'm going to make another video to talk about that. Right now, you can simply remember we need a le there. Basically, you can remember it goes after the verb. And then for past continuous tense, was, were, doing. You can see 在 plus verb. That's the same with 在 plus verb, like present continuous tense. But you need to remember, for past continuous tense, we should have the time words for the past tense. Like in the example, yesterday at 10 a.m. 昨天上午10点. We should have those time words showing it's in the past. How do we negate those verbs in these tenses? Do or does not, we just need a 不 go before the verb. And am, is, are not doing, we are going to have 不在 goes before the verb. For have, has not done, we need to have 没有 plus verb plus 过. And remember that 有 is optional. You may not see it or hear it in some sentences. For will not do, it's easy. We just have 不会 plus verb. For am, is, are not going to do, we just need to have 不要 plus verb. And for did not, we just need 没有 plus verb. Remember that 有 is optional, and there's a common mistake here. We don't need another le there for the negation of a verb in the past tense. For past continuous tense, was, were not doing, we do it exactly the same like what we did in present continuous tense. We have 不在 before the verb. but again, we need time words in the past. We have done question number 1. Let's move on to question number 2. How to ask and answer questions in present, future, and past tenses in Mandarin Chinese. Number 1. Simple present tense, do, does. For a yes or no question, do you take Chinese lessons? That is, question 1 would be 你上不上中文课? 你上不上中文课? Question 2 is 你上中文课吗? 你上中文课吗? How do you answer that question? In English, answer 1 is yes, I do. In Chinese, it is different. What we say is 上. Answer 2, no, I don't. In Chinese, it is 不上. You can see that in Chinese, what we do is just to quote the verb or negate the verb to answer a yes or no question. Actually, I made a video before talking about how to ask and answer yes or no questions in detail. That video is just about simple present tense. I gave much more examples. You can check out the video in the link in the description below. Number 2, present continuous tense. Am is are doing. How do we ask a yes or no question? Is he taking Chinese lessons? What we do is 他在不在上中文课? 他在不在上中文课? Another one is 他在上中文课吗? 他在上中文课吗? How do we answer that question? Answer 1 is 在上, 在上. Answer 2 is 不在上, 不在上. Again, you can see we just need to quote the verb and negate the verb. But for sure, we need this 在 to be there. Number 3, present perfect tense. The example is, has he taken Chinese lessons before? Question 1 is, 他以前有没有上过中文课? 他以前有没有上过中文课? Another way is, question 2, 他以前上过中文课吗? 他以前上过中文课吗? How do you answer that question? 上过, 上过. That's like yes, he has in English. Answer 2, 没有上过, 没有上过. Usually you are going to hear 没上过. That's the one we have in Chinese for no, he hasn't. Number 4, simple future tense. Will he take Chinese lessons tomorrow? Question 1. 他明天会不会上中文课? 他明天会不会上中文课? Question 2 is 他明天会上中文课吗? 他明天会上中文课吗? How do you answer that question? Yes, he will. In Chinese, it is 会上. 会上. You may not hear that 上. It may just be 会. 会. But I recommend you to say 会上. That sounds better. Answer 2, no, he won't. That is 不会上. 不会上 in Chinese. Number 4 again for this question. Is he going to take Chinese lessons tomorrow? Question 1. 他明天要不要上中文课? 他明天要不要上中文课? Question 2 is 他明天要上中文课吗? 他明天要上中文课吗? Answer 1, yes, he is. That is 要上. 要上 in Chinese. Answer 2, no, he isn't. That is 不要上. 不要上 in Chinese. Number 5, simple past tense. Simple past tense is not simple. It's the most complicated one. So for did, the example is, did he take Chinese lessons yesterday? We have actually 3 different ways to say that sentence in Chinese. Number 1, question 1. 他昨天有没有上中文课? 他昨天有没有上中文课? Question 2 is, 他昨天上了中文课吗? 他昨天上了中文课吗? Question 3 is, 他昨天上中文课了吗? 他昨天上中文课了吗? You may ask what's the difference between question 2 and question 3 for the le after the verb and the le in the end of the sentence. I'm going to make another video to talk about that later. For answer 1, yes, he did, in Chinese is 上了,上了. And for answer 2, no, he didn't, it is 没有上,没有上, or 没上,没上. The last one, for past continuous tense, the example is, was he taking Chinese lessons at 10 a.m. yesterday? Question 1 is, 他昨天上午10点在不在上中文课？他昨天上午10点在不在上中文课？ Question 2 is, 他昨天上午10点在上中文课吗？他昨天上午10点在上中文课吗？ How do you answer that question? The same like the one we had for present perfect tense. Answer 1, yes, he was. That is, 在上,在上. And answer 2, no, he wasn't. In Chinese is 不在上,不在上. Again, for this one, it must be under the context in the past. Let me summarize them all for you. For simple present tense, when we are making a yes or no question, what we can do is verb plus 不 verb. That is one way. The other one is make a ma in the end of the sentence. And how do we answer the question? Quote the verb or negate the verb with a 不. For present continuous tense, we need to say 在不在 plus the verb. The other way is 在 plus verb plus ma in the end. How do we answer that question? For yes, it is 在 plus verb. For no, we are going to say 不在 plus verb. Simply quote the verb or negate the verb. And for present perfect tense, when we are asking a yes or no question, what we can do is 有没有 plus verb plus 过. The other way is verb plus 过 with ma in the end. How do we answer that question? We can just answer with verb plus 过. That is for yes. For no, we can answer with 没有 plus verb plus 过. And that 有 is optional. For simple future tense, we can ask the question with a 会不会 plus verb or 会 plus verb. Ma, that 会 is for will. When we answer, we can answer with 会 plus verb or answer with 不会 plus verb. That is for no. 会 plus verb is for yes. Another one is 要不要 plus verb, or we can do 要 plus verb plus ma. When we answer it, yes, what we can say is 要 plus verb. No, what we can say is 不要 plus verb. These are for present and future tenses. The past tenses, let me do it for you. So for past tense, for simple past tense, you can see it's the most complicated one. We have 3 ways to ask a yes or no question. Number 1 is 有没有 plus verb. Number 2 is verb plus 了 plus ma in the end. And then number 3 is verb plus 了吗 in the end. How do you answer that yes or no question? For yes, you can just answer with the verb plus 了. For no, we can answer 没有 plus verb. Remember, we don't need another 了 there. And the 有 is optional. And for past continuous tense, we ask the yes or no question with 在不在 plus verb or 在 plus verb plus ma. Again, it's the same as the one we had in present continuous tense, but we do need those time words in the past. When we answer it, it's also the same. For yes, we just say 在 plus verb. For no, we answer with 不在 plus verb. That's all. Thank you for watching. 再见.